Hello. Thank you to everybody who has sent me your midterm check-in over the past week. It's been really, really helpful for me to be able to just get a handle on where folks are and what's working and challenges and things that have been coming up. If you haven't had a chance to send me that email yet, please do. Even though we're reaching the end of this week, like I said, it is really helpful for me to have that kind of connection with each of you and just to see where things are. So even if that comes in a day later, whatever it may be, I would still encourage you to send that. I think that'll be helpful for both of us. So the reason that I am making this video today is there has been a few themes that came up through these check-in emails that you had sent to me that I figured if it's coming up as a theme, it would probably be worthwhile for me to address for the class as a whole. So the first thing and the biggest thing is management of course content and your time. That probably is the theme, quite honestly, that permeates most of the concerns that folks brought up. And probably the biggest one of those was related to class discussion. So let's talk about that a little bit. First off, I will acknowledge that this is a really, really engaged class with a lot of participation and discussion, which is absolutely fantastic. When I have a class where I'm, trying to pull responses out of people, yeah, it's not necessarily the best sort of learning experience for folks. So that is fantastic. But the flip side of the high engagement, the high participation, of course, is that there is a lot of posts in class and a lot for each of us to read and work through. So let me give you a few pieces of advice on how to work with this. The first thing that I would suggest is skim posts. It's okay, I'm giving you permission, it is okay for you not to understand and read in great depth every single thing that everybody posts in class. I would suggest taking, maybe even just 20 minutes a day. That should be sufficient. I know you might think, oh, how's that sufficient? But 20 minutes a day to skim through everything that's in class. All of us hopefully can find the 20 minutes to do that. And once you have done that, if you have time then to engage in discussion at that time, fantastic, but only really engage with a couple of the major concepts or threads that are of interest to you. So if in a single discussion, let's say that there's 6 different major threads or major discussions going on, maybe choose 1 or 2 of those that really is where your learning needs lie. And it's okay to only engage in the ones that are really of interest to you. You're not ignoring the other ones. Like I said, you're skimming through those, but it is not necessary for you to really engage in those in any sort of depth. So like I said, do the skimming, probably every day, maybe every other day, and then take just a couple days a week to where you really then do that engagement with those particular discussion threads that are of interest to you. If you don't have time to do it on the day that at the time that you're skimming, just mark that post as unread. So the little circle that's to the left of each post, just mark that circle and turn it blue, and that'll remind you then that that's one that you want to come back to and engage with. Now, I know that I had mentioned earlier in the semester to both in a course announcement and video, and then to several folks individually, that I expect engagement throughout the week. Engagement throughout the week does not mean that you have to post every day or even every other day. It simply means don't jump in at the first day of the week, respond to something, and then disappear. Don't come in at the end of the week and try to wrap everything up. Nobody can then engage with you in discussion. Engaging throughout the week means making sure that you're in there and that you're checking back in a little bit more to continue the conversation in areas that are needed. I'm not going to give you an exact number of posts. That's very artificial when I do that. But yeah, if you're in there a couple of times a week, you're in good shape. It does not have to be every day. So hopefully those hints of doing a little bit of skimming and then really only engaging in depth with those discussions that really speak to you will help a little bit with the management of the discussion. The other thing that I would like to caution the group about is, and this is hard to say because a lot of that connection comes through those discussions, but as much as we can, if we can keep those discussions focused to and related on the topic at hand, that's fantastic. When those other kind of side things come in, like, oh, this is cool also, or I really want to talk to you about your experience in this, but it's not really what our discussion is about, feel free, please, absolutely reach out to that student or students individually. We have an off-topic discussion. You can use that as much as you want, but that really helps to kind of keep the discussions a little bit more manageable if those things that aren't really kind of focused on what the topic is can happen outside of the actual discussion. So I hope that helps a little bit with the management of the discussions for everybody. Again, I'm thrilled that the class is so engaged, but the flip side of the coin is figuring out how to make the discussions manageable. So another thing that came up in several of the kind of a theme that came up in these check-in emails is not just the amount of discussion and the amount of that time that takes, but the other pieces of class as well. So I am going to acknowledge that for the previous few weeks and then the ones that we're in right now, there's been a lot of reading. Hopefully, because that's what I ask you to do, is that you have read the weekly overviews that I put for every new module. My intent with these readings was not for you to understand every single bit of this and to memorize it, by no stretch of the imagination. Rather, I want you, so in the Davis and Aaron text, I want you to understand that big concept of how you match learning objectives to ways of learning. And then you should use that, as long as you have that general idea in mind, keep that text as a reference, okay? And so when you're coming up against a learning objective, you're like, oh, what is the best way of learning? You can go back to that and say, oh, there we go, it's cognitive learning. Oh, there you go, it's experiential learning, whatever it may be. It is not meant for you to completely understand and internalize all of this. I want you to understand the big idea of the Davis and Aaron text and those ways of learning, and then be able to refer back to that over time as needed. The same concept with the text that we're reading right now, the Vlodkowski and Ginsberg text. Please, please, please do not think that you need to memorize every single strategy for those four competencies with the inclusion and the engagement in those four areas. Again, this is meant to, I want you to understand the big idea behind this framework for motivation. And then you can go back to that text at any time to say, you know, I'm really struggling right now with inclusion. Okay, I'm going to pull out this book and I know this can help me with that, or whatever it may happen to be. So yes, there have been a lot of chapters. Please, this is, again, understand the big ideas, come back to those as needed throughout this semester and beyond to be able to access those. I think, hopefully, we'll also feel a little bit of a breath, a little sigh of relief on reading. As in another one more week, we're going to start our student-led facilitations. Those are always, I love them. They're fantastic. It's great to have not just me planning and facilitating everything. You get 16 other students' ideas, and you get to engage with things in a really different way. And they will be offering you resources and things like that, but there are no specific textbook readings for that as well. So deep breath. We have some changes coming that I think will also take a little bit of the pressure off in terms of the amount of reading in class. Good. Okay. Another thing that has come up several times in terms of the amount of time for class are the low stakes quizzes. So Thomas Rausch, who is our doctoral student TA for this class, has been the one taking the lead on that. I've gotten great feedback on folks about some of the very useful things of those low stake quizzes, and then maybe some options for how to revise those. This is actually the first semester that I've had anything like this in my class. Again, as I mentioned, Thomas is the one taking the lead on this, and we'll be talking about that a little bit. So you may see a few adjustments to those as well. Finally, let's talk about assignments for this class. Probably one of the difficulties with the assignments is most of them are long-term. Meaning that you do things like you start the portfolio and then you continue to develop it. The toolkit is something you should be adding to throughout the semester. Journaling is something you should be doing every week. So I can absolutely understand and acknowledge that it feels like, oh my gosh, these assignments are huge. Pace yourself. Take a little bite of these every week. It's eating an elephant, right? You don't have to have an entire semester's worth of journaling in a week. You don't have to have your entire portfolio completed right away. Take a little bite of the elephant, a little bit, and you'll find if you do that and just carve out a little bit of time to do these things each week, that you'll have great products by the end of the semester. Again, I operate this way, and I'm like, oh, I see this huge, big assignment that I have to do. Panic, too much for me. So yes, I understand and I empathize with where you are, but as much as you can think about, let's just do a little bit. I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised by the end of the semester that those little bits add up to the final really great product. Okay, thank you for the opportunity. I know I just took 10 more minutes of your time, your precious time, but I do hope that kind of this connection and a little bit of acknowledgement and a little bit of advice will be helpful for you, so you can feel successful and so you can feel that this class is manageable for the rest of the semester. Again, as always, please, please, please reach out to me at any time with questions about this, other things that come up, continuing challenges, whatever it may be. The best way for me to help you be successful in this class is for you to stay in communication with me. Thanks.